looks like. I was on my way back from, how many people know Slow Food in Terra Madre? You just asked that question. A lot. So Slow Food is a nonprofit organization that started in Italy about 20 years ago in response to McDonald's opening in Rome. And it's turned into an international movement. There's only about 16,000 members in the US. There are something like 85,000 members worldwide. A lot of them are in Italy, but there are members in over 100 countries. And they have a conference every other year. It's very Italian. Every other year, about now it's about 8,000 people come together from 150 countries. Of the 8,000 people, 6,000 of them are small organic farmers. Another 1,000 are chefs, and another 1,000 are academics. It's really an amazing thing. There's nothing in the United States even remotely like it. Slow Food Nation happened up in San Francisco. It was the first kind of large-scale slow food thing that happened in the U.S., but you have to sort of feel it in Turin to appreciate the beauty of it. And I was coming back from Terra Madre in October, and actually, I'm sorry, it was November. It was right after the election. I got to cry in Turin the night of the election. And here's the International Herald Tribune from November 8th that I happened to read on the plane coming back. Now, I have two props here that are periodicals. It really could have been anything. There's so many things since then. It could have been anything. So what's this one? You know, a half-page article, At the Crossroads of Finance and Culture. And it's a picture from It's a Wonderful Life, and then from Merchant of Venice. And the article is about the fact that we are suddenly finding ourselves at a time when the relationship or lack thereof of finance and culture has to be discussed publicly. I mean, when before this year would you ever have seen anything like this in a major international paper? Here's from The Economist. The same thing has appeared in many periodicals, so you probably have seen it. I'll bet you many people have seen it. It's a dialogue sponsored by the John Templeton Foundation. And the heading is, Does the Free Market Corrode Moral Character? That's the question, and then it has a wide range of responses, from absolutely, positively all the time to never and everybody in between. And some of the names are very famous and some of them aren't. And then it gives you a link to go on for a big dialogue. So, you know, we're at a moment in time when we can actually wonder if it's possible to ask some new questions and maybe come up with some new answers. Now, coming back to the 70s, I mean, it's good that you mentioned that, because I'm going to read a passage, if I get that far, that's going to mention E.F. Schumacher. Well, actually, his name will come up somewhere because it's sprinkled through the book. And those of you who read Small is Beautiful might remember the subtitle of that as Economics as if People Mattered. And that's why I put the subtitle the way I put it, Investing as if Food, Farms, and Fertility Matter. Because this is a not so subtle attempt to drag E.F. Schumacher forward into our current thing, which you could just... That's the cameraman. What kind of town is this? I don't know, but I'm in favor of it, of course. You know. What happened in the 70s, you know, I had gotten out of college and read E.F. Schumacher. A lot of other things happened in the 70s, but I'm only concerned about my life, so I'll tell you about that. I'm glad Mike mentioned it, because to me what we are doing right now, I think, what some of us are doing, and what might take, is coming back to those same questions, but answering them with the benefit of the experience of the last 30 or 40 years. Now remember, in the 70s, like, people barely knew what smog was. There was a crisis, there was an oil crisis, but it went by pretty fast and everyone kind of went about their business again. And if you think about all of the social, environmental, economic things that have happened in the last 30 years that would make it possible to come back to those questions and talk differently about them, they're legion. I mean, everything is different now, but probably the easiest way to summarize it is saying, now the idea of parts per million in the atmosphere is in everybody's consciousness. Just that thing by itself raises just the most fundamental question about the relationship of our species to the planet, and whether people completely absorb it, whether they decide to act on it. It's in the public consciousness now. So that forces down creates kind of a crucible under which it might be possible to have new kinds of discussions. So you'll hear when I read from this, obvious, some of them are very explicit, some of them are not quite as explicit, but attempts to bring those questions forward about slow, small, and local. You know, now that we have a world of globalization, we know we have that. Maybe I'll give a few statistics pertinent to food. But I think we know it, but we are so inured to it that we kind of don't really face it. So again, if I had a PowerPoint here, I'd probably click right now, and up would come a very cute picture of a pig. taken very close with a wide-angle lens of a pig standing outside, like a free-range pig standing outside in a beautiful field. It's a Nyman Ranch pig. It's an actual shot of a Nyman Ranch pig, which is raised outside, and the opposite of a hot confinement unit. And the reason I put that up there is because I sometimes think of this as staring the pig. And as soon as I saw that picture, besides the fact that it was a very cute pig, I realized it was kind of a metaphor for like looking close up and actually seeing the reality, not just of how we grow our food, but what our economy is doing to the planet. And if let me just kind of ramble here a little bit. This wasn't how I was going to start, but it never is. You probably figured that out already.
Let us know when you're going to start.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty soon I'm going to start, and then I'll be doing it, and I'll tell you when it's over. So if you were going to, if you're really going to stare the pig in the face, meaning dare to come back to those same questions that were raised, let's say by Yves Schumacher and others, and ask them again today. Just ask the questions. Here might be some of the questions. Let me see, I made notes on some of these just to make sure I don't forget. Okay, for question one. What if you had to invest 50% of your assets within 50 miles of where you lived? Now, you know, if this was just a group of investors and we were just having an investor conference, which I'm often dealing with angel investors and others, that question meets with a really blank, the first response is kind of a blank, what the hell are you talking about? Then you just, if you don't say anything for a while, people start processing, well, that's impossible, that could never work, there's no market for that, how would you do that? You know, but then you start thinking, well, why isn't there, and what would it be like, and where does my money go anyway? And basically, let's say the opposite of that 50-50 idea is the idea of maybe 50% of every dollar that you put in the stock market is going up a smokestack in China. Right. I mean, I don't know how many people, I'm sure you're all generally aware of what's going on in China, but again, staring the pig in the face, let's stare that pig in the face. China is building 1 or 2 coal-fired power plants every week. Every week. They built more roads in 2008 than they had in the 50 years before that. I don't remember how many cars they have now, but it's probably like 20 million on its way to 250 million. There's 600 million cars on the planet right now. There's going to be 200 million in China before too long. So, okay, so again, not to get us too depressed here before I start. You know, here's a different, just totally, these are not connected questions. How can we enjoy our slow food while our money is zooming around the planet invested in companies of the monoculture? Meaning, even if we're all great slow food people and we go to beautiful slow food restaurants, but if our capital is invested in the economy without attention to these issues, how can we enjoy that food? Well, I don't know. I can't. Another one, not as pithy as those. I don't know if you thought those were pithy. I hope you did, because they're much worse. If we have religion about carbon in the atmosphere, and even if we clean up all of our toys and our machines, because a lot of the carbon in the atmosphere is from our toys. It's not from things we need, it's from things we want and use sometimes frivolously. But even if we clean them all up so they're not emitting carbon in the atmosphere anymore, if we don't preserve soil fertility, how are we going to survive? And there is a what people, and I would say that's one of the fundamental things I'm trying to do in the book, is just raise consciousness about the importance of soil fertility as it relates to long-term viability of the civilization, but particularly looking at it through the lens of the economy. You can't have enduring wealth as a civilization if you are degrading your soil fertility. And I'm sure a lot of people in the room know enough about sustainable agriculture to know, but these statistics are absolutely frightening and bizarre. But basically, we are degrading, if you take this country, soil fertility that it took millennia to create in decades. And depending on how you count, you could just say, just for the sake of arguments, let's say we're about 1/3 of the way through degrading the soil fertility of this continent. And we've done the vast majority of that degrading in the last 30 years. There are all kinds of indicators of this: percentage of organic matter in the soil, rate of soil erosion, the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Some of them are in here. This is not meant to, obviously this is not encyclopedic. This book is meant to just kind of be a brushstroke to get us all to think about these things. So those are just a few of the staring the pig in the, again, the pig is here. We're just trying to ask some questions that get us to face what is going on, with the hope that because it's now 2009, not 1969, we might actually be able to start acting differently about it.